Here's a question from the golf and tourism industry. And we will start with, by coin toss, Assemblyman Hardy. The Mesquite economy has been struggling over the past few years, as all of you know. Please cite some examples of things you can do to help the tourism industry here in Mesquite at the federal level.
I'm going to stand. It's okay. From the federal level, sometimes it becomes very difficult, but you have to listen to your constituents and the folks that the city councils and your water board members to see what needs they have. But for his business in this community, what will help our community grow and prosper is not just for the golf industry. We need a diversified economy. And this country that we have is losing businesses overseas. I believe I have an answer to be able to make sure that we bring those businesses back home. We've got to stop borrowing more money from China. We've got to stop lowering devaluing their dollar by them letting purchase our dollars at $2 billion a day to make sure that we provide the opportunity where they have to be on an equal basis. We need to look at our economy in the same way that President Reagan looked back in the 80s. The Japanese were doing the same thing. They were buying the dollar down and having a 20% lower value of their dollar, which they could come over here and compete, basically without competing. We need to do put a countervailing duty, just like President Reagan did, on the Japanese, to make sure that we do the same thing with the Chinese, to make sure businesses have an opportunity to come home and develop here in Mesquite. We are a great place for manufacturing or anything else to happen in this community, not just golf courses, but we need to be diverse, and I think I can do that back in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. First, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me to participate. It's great to be here with my colleague and opponent, Assemblyman Hardy. And I want to start by saying I commend him for his years of service to this community in particular, because he has made a tremendous impact. And I'm very proud to be here tonight with him. And to all of you and the moderators, specifically to the question, what can we do at the federal level to support the golf industry and other industries? Primarily, it's what I have been doing, working with your mayor and city council on the Mesquite Lands Bill, which will transfer land from the BLM to the city of Mesquite in order to develop a new airport and other manufacturing and economic development around the airport, because this is a great community. Many of you moved here from other places because it's such a beautiful community. And people want to come here and visit our golf courses. They want to spend nights in our hotel rooms, get spa packages, or just relax. And we need to promote that because this is a very unique and beautiful community that is so special. We have one of the best golf courses in the world right here in Mesquite. And we're here with Corey and his team promote this facility and other golf courses in the area. And I can tell you, when I talk about my district and I talk about the fact that I represent portions of Mesquite and other places, and I tell them that Wolf Creek Golf Course is one of my districts, people tell me all the time, when can we go out there to golf? So we've got to continue to promote it, but one way is to get this land bill passed so we can get more people here through our airport.
At this point, I'll be turning over, like we've done in the past, questions to our media. I would ask you, though, please hold your applause to the very end. And if you have any comments, please hold them to the end also so we can just expedite the questions. Thank you.
We'll see how that works. Good evening, President. Thank you for coming down. The ACA has resulted in Nevada's uninsured rate dropping 7%, and local Mesa View Hospital reports a significant increase in newly insured customers. Despite all the website problems in Nevada and nationally, the projections for enrollment have been well exceeded, and the rise in health insurance premiums has dropped to the lowest rate since before Reagan. do you still support the repeal of the ACA? And if so, why and what would you replace it with?
I still stand that we need to repeal the ACA, repeal and replace. There are certain pieces of that ACA that we all understand that are valuable. The pre-existing conditions, your children be able to stay on until they're 26. We haven't seen the real impact of this insurance, I don't believe, as a business person. Reports are already showing that there will be 30 million people that will lose their insurance. We were...
Use his microphone. Sorry.
Thank you. We were promised that we'd be able to keep our insurance. Some may have not seen that increase, and many have had to gain the value of having the insurance. But businesses are going to have to make a decision. The business that I once owned that was just sold to my partner last year, he's already having to decide whether he can keep those insurance rates, insurance that we've been supplying for years now, or let it go and take the penalty, because it's extremely a high opportunity to lose it. He just soon give that money to his employees. But I think once this hits, I think you're really going to see the real cause and effect of the ACA. People may have benefited, but I think many more people will lose. Thank you.
This is about the ACA as well. You supported the state of Nevada building and operating its own healthcare exchange, Xerox.
These are 5 questions for each representative in a row. So Mr. Hardy will do 5 questions in a row, and then Mr. Hardy.
Turn the mic up.
Okay. Governor Sandoval's administration has now spent over $52 million to a private contractor, and the site still doesn't work. The state decided to spend another $25 million to migrate it to the federal site. This seems to have perfectly fit your standard philosophies of government, that the state should be in charge and that the private industry does jobs better than government. What went wrong in this instance?
The government was in charge still. We had individuals there that promised us as those state representatives that everything was on track. We continually heard that throughout interim sessions, discussions, that everything was good and everything was on track. So individuals not following up to make sure that the private sector was doing their job, I believe that's still a government problem. We have to make sure that we evaluate, we study, we make sure that we're paying people to do the right thing. And when that doesn't happen at the government level, I think that sometimes that costs us. But that's just my opinion.
Okay, the next question. If you were in Congress right now, would you support the Paycheck Fairness Act that would require women to be paid equally for equal work? If so, why? If not, why not?
You know, I support equal pay for equal work all the way across the board. I believe that women should be paid for the same equally for the same job that a man is doing. But we continue to strive to make more laws that are unenforceable, that put more liability on the employer. It ends up being nothing but a lawsuit city that costs business the opportunity to continue to expand. We need to enforce the laws we have on books. There should be no discrimination anywhere, and I believe we have laws for those. We just need to make sure that we enforce the laws that are in place. Thank you.
All right. It is undisputed that local rancher Cliven Bundy has been disobeying federal court orders for many years now and continuing to trespass and use federal land as if it was his own. And you have publicly supported him last April, including appearing at a rally of Bundy's armed militia. Even if you don't agree with laws and courts, do you think that it's appropriate for someone who seeks a federal office to support willful disobedience of federal court orders and to support armed resistance to federal law enforcement officers in order to continue that disobedience?
Let's be very clear about what I supported. At no time did I enforce Cliven Bundy not paying his fees, his EMUs. What I did support is the fact that he was trying to uphold state lands rights, state privileges that he had never been purchased from him in the proper direction, in my belief. The courts have deemed that he was wrong. The courts had the opportunity to go in there and remove those cattle. But when we had seen what happened, you know, Cliven is blamed for the civil disobedience out there. It wasn't him that first brought the guns, that brought the law enforcement out there. People were tasered because they took pictures. When did that become against the law as a First Amendment right? It wasn't him that had snipers sitting on hillsides. That brought the individuals here that I don't think we needed to have here. The government did that first. You know, there was a lot that I think I did to try to solve this problem, even working with the congressman here. But there's still answers that haven't been answered. Who give the authority to do that? And why would a government come in and with that kind of force all over the countryside? We're talking about law enforcement and their overreach. That was the biggest overreach I've ever seen. When people are physically abused or pushed around or shot with tasers because of the fact that they wanted to take a picture, is wrong. So we can talk about who determined what is here and what I supported. Cliven Bundy, the removal of his cattle, I don't think even he was fighting that. Let him do it. He wanted the right to protest. But the government showed up here with a different stance. Thank you.
At a recent event in Mesquite, you stated that Mitt Romney's 47% was true and is even worse now. Mitt himself has since acknowledged that he was wrong, and dozens of analyses have verified that number would include 44% of elderly people who receive Social Security and a lot of veterans and even active military and disabled people. Can you please tell us what people make up your 47%?
The 47% was probably the same discussion that Mr. Romney. You know, people make inappropriate statements all the time. You know, I'm not one of those people that's here to think about and have a poll-tested words every time I turn around. I'm not one of those individuals that are afraid of saying what he's got on his mind. I come from like I said, from a ranch and a farm. I speak my mind and try to accept other people's opinion without offending individuals. But like I said, I don't do poll-tested words. I'm not worried about that. I believe that it's my privilege to say how I want it. You know, politicians have a way of speaking to where they make sure that everything's correct and functional. I don't worry about that as an individual. At the end of the day, do you want somebody that's plain speaking, open-minded? But you know, there's many politicians, good politicians, that have been in this state for years, and you know, if people want to remove that individuals for maybe gaffes that they want to talk about, then I am going to gladly stand in line when the people remove Senator Harry Reid for some of his statements. Thank you.
How's the ticker? Great. You were very clear about your disapproval of the actions of Cliven Bundy last April during his standoff with federal law enforcement agents. Nevertheless, the BLM left and Bundy continued to allow his cattle to trespass, seemingly without consequence. Why hasn't the federal government been able to enforce the court order?
Thank you, Mike. Cliven Bundy is a lawbreaker, and he will be held accountable as any other person who breaks federal law.
Again, please, no applause.
The BLM also used excessive force and did not handle the operation properly in the collection of those cattle. And there needs to be accountability for both Cliven Bundy and his failure to follow the law, and there needs to be accountability and oversight of the BLM to properly respect individuals' right to protest. Now, where it stands today, and I am in regular contact with the sheriff and with entities that are handling the federal investigation, including the FBI. That investigation has to be completed. It is no longer just a civil matter. It is now a criminal matter because federal criminal laws were broken or alleged to be broken, and therefore it has to be handled in a much different way than the BLM attempted to handle it in the first place. So that process has to play out. And Assemblyman Hardy is right. During the height of that conflict, I came out here to Mesquite and met with local leaders, including Assemblyman Hardy, and we worked to defuse the situation because we believed that no one should have been hurt over cattle. And we're glad that that did not happen. But ultimately, Cliven Bundy needs to be held accountable. He is not a patriot or a folk hero. He is a lawbreaker. And those ranchers who have followed the law need to be held up as the example for public lands, not Cliven Bundy.
Congressman Horsford, let's switch areas for a minute. And I know we'd like to talk everything about Mesquite and what influences us, but as a member of Congress, you have some significantly larger issues to deal with. The United States appears to be getting involved in another Middle East military situation with ISIS. It's scary. We know they are bad folks and they need to be stopped. I'd like your opinion on what you will support today, and if you could see a case where we would be drawn into another war where we have full complement of boots on the ground.
Thank you. Right now, the conflict that's occurring with ISIS is a conflict and a threat to the Middle East and that region, not a direct conflict or threat to the United States, or at least not an imminent threat or risk to the United States. I supported the bipartisan vote that did happen in Congress on the Senate and the House, where we approved airstrikes along with our international allies, including Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Jordan, among others, and other international allies, as well as the authorization to train and equip moderate Syrian fighters through December 11th. This is not an authorization of war. If that is necessary, then the Congress needs to debate and ultimately vote to enter into any type of long-term conflict. That is not what we are in. If that is where we get to, I do not support U.S. troops being sent over to fight a war that is not the United States war to fight. I believe the policy today is that this is not a go-it-alone strategy for the United States like prior conflicts. That we need an international coalition of allies that needs to be led by Muslim communities so that this doesn't become ISIS against the United States. It will become ISIS against the world. Because they are a small faction of people, albeit very extreme and radical, and they're barbaric, but they do not reflect even the views of the Muslim community. So I do not support our troops being sent there. I know my opponent and others have said that we may have to send them. I would not authorize or approve that action as a member of Congress.
You supported equal pay for equal work, including the Paycheck Fairness Act that was rejected by House Republicans. Can you tell us why you supported the bill, whether there is a paycheck inequality in Nevada, and what the bill would do for your female working constituents if passed?
I support pay equality because I'm married to a wife, and I want my wife to be paid the same for doing the job that the man across from her does. I have a daughter, and I want her to be treated the same as my two sons. And yes, there is pay inequity in this country. For every dollar that a man makes, women make 77 cents. And here in Nevada, that it's better at about 85 cents on the dollar, but that is not equity. And I disagree with Assemblyman Hardy. There is a role for government to have an even playing field. We do not discriminate in this country. I don't support the concept of 47%. I believe in equality and equal treatment for every person. And women deserve equal treatment, and it's a shame that in 2014 we're even having this debate.
Yeah. It is.
It's a shame. And so I will continue as an advocate for issues around equality and to address the income inequality that exists in this country as well. One of the reasons that we need to address the pay for women is that women are now about 40% of heads of households in many families. And when that woman is not being paid the same, that affects that entire family. And if they're on government assistance or in poverty, then each one of us as taxpayers ends up covering that expense. So why should we subsidize corporations when the average restaurant CEO last year in 2013 made almost $11 million a year, compared to the minimum wage worker that made $14,500. That's what's wrong. And that's why we need pay equity at every level so that we can close this income gap and treat people fairly and equally in this country.
Congressman Horsford, you sponsored a bill that got a veterans clinic funded for Pahrump. We're also a long way from Las Vegas. What are the chances of us getting something like that here?
Well, let me first say it took us over 2 years. This was approved in a prior budget by a prior Congress to fund that Pahrump VA clinic. So I can't take credit for that. That was done before me. But even after it was funded, it took 2 years to get a piece of paper signed by the Secretary of the VA because the scope of the project had changed. And so I literally had to take it upon myself to call every day into the VA office in order to get an answer, and ultimately had to go on national TV in order to get the VA's attention. The new VA secretary, after 1 week of being confirmed, signed that piece of paper, and that's why we're getting a VA clinic in Pahrump. But specifically for what we need here in Mesquite, because I know we have a high percentage of veterans, and that's why I voted for the VA reform bill. So anybody who lives within a 40-mile radius of a local VA clinic, like Mesquite, you can go see a private doctor in this community. All you have to do is get a VA card that allows you to see that doctor. That law is now in effect. It was a bipartisan bill. I was proud to support it. In addition to that, it also provides $15 billion of additional funding, $10 billion for VA health care, and $5 billion for VA benefits care. Because we have to keep our promise and our commitments, not just to the men and women who serve us on the battlefield, but once they come home, to get health care, to get their benefits paid, to have access to housing, to not be homeless. And that's why I supported that VA reform bill. If you don't know how to get to see your doctor, I have an outreach office here the third Wednesday of every month, 9 to 10:30. You can come down at the senior center, come and talk to my staff so that you can find out how you can go and see a private doctor and not have to go out of the community to see a doctor for your VA needs.
That's almost as good as having a clinic, right? Back to the issue of pay. A lot of people in Mesquite work full-time and are still below the poverty line. Some work a job and a half and are still below the poverty line. Do you support increasing the minimum wage to a level that is at least as high as it was in 1968 when I was getting it? Of course, as adjusted for inflation. If so, both of us, I've inflated too. What benefits do you think that would bring to Mesquite if it was enacted?
I do support increasing the federal minimum wage to $10.10 an hour because of what I said earlier, which is today, $7.25 an hour equals $14,500 a year. And 2/3 of minimum wage workers are women. Half of them are head of their household. And this is a problem in this country where we have to address the inequalities that exist. Now, I supported the increase in the state minimum wage to $8.25, $1 more than the federal minimum wage, set on inflation, and that was a bipartisan agreement. I had colleagues in the state Senate that voted with that as Republicans because they understood that it was good for the economy to help move people into the middle class. And this should not be a partisan issue because there is recognition that by supporting those workers in the middle class or minimum wage workers, it helps the economy. That people have more disposable income, can go and spend that money at the local restaurant or the dry cleaners, taking their kids to events. That's how our economy works. Now, I don't support continuing to give corporations and billionaires tax subsidies and tax loopholes when we can't give minimum wage workers who make $14,500 a raise. I have nothing wrong against people who are rich. The restaurant CEOs that made $11 million, God bless you. But they need to recognize the only reason they made that $11 million in 2013 was because of that minimum wage worker who was selling that product to all of us as consumers. And they deserve the opportunity to provide for themselves and their family, just like that CEO who made $11 million last year.
We are now differing from what we've done before, and each individual will have 5 minutes for a closing statement. Will your clock set for that? Okay. And because we started with Preston Hardy, we will end with Stephen Horsford. So you have 5 minutes.
Well, first, thank you, Al. Thank you to the media panel, to my colleague, Assemblyman Hardy. It's great to be here. And for all of you, this is how democracy works. Yes. For you all to be here for as long as you have, to hear from all of us as candidates who are asking for your vote and your support, thank you for coming out and caring enough about who represents you. I decided to run for Congress after serving in the state Senate for 8 years because I wanted to make a difference. And I don't just say that rhetorically. Congress is broken. As an institution, it is failing the American people. And I am as frustrated as you are in why our government can't work better. It's too partisan, and there's too much gridlock. And as a freshman in the minority, I didn't go back to Washington to be part of that. I went back there to represent all of you. And in my first year, I worked to be effective, like the Las Vegas Review-Journal, who endorsed me recently, said that I had been as a freshman. I worked to be bipartisan, passing legislation, including the land jobs bill that I passed out of the House Natural Resources Committee and out of the floor unanimously. Bills don't come out of Congress and the House unanimously. It only happened because I worked in a bipartisan way with my colleagues, Congressman Mark Amodei, as well as the Republican leadership on the committee. And finally, I'm there to be a voice for Nevada. Not special interest, not for the corporations or the CEOs. They have lobbyists. They have representatives. I'm there for you. And every time I take a vote, I think about you. I think about the fact that Nevada still has the most unstable housing market in the nation. That 30% or more of our homes are upside down in value. And I call them homes because to me, a home is where you create memories with your family. It's where you raise your children. And for people to have lost everything in this downturn has really hurt us to our core. But we're coming back, and things are getting better. But we have to be able to work together to solve problems. So I was appointed in April to serve on the Financial Services Committee, which is the Housing, Banking, and Insurance Committee. And I'm not there for industry, I'm there for you. Already, I'm bringing legislation forward to help address the housing crisis here in Nevada, because that's what I've heard so much about that we need to fix. I'm also focused on the jobs front and the economy, and that's why I'm working with your mayor and city council to get this Mesquite Lands Bill passed, because I know what that will do to our community. And it's a model for how we can transfer federal land back to our local communities. I agree with my opponent that Nevada should have more control and a stake, but there's a way to do it, and there's a way to make that happen in DC, and there's a way to just talk about it. And in 1 year, as a freshman in the minority, I found a way to break through that gridlock to get it done. And so that's why I'm asking for your support. Every 2 years in the House of Representatives, you get to decide who represents you. And I'm honored that there's 700,000 people who hired me to do a job 2 years ago. And I'm fighting for you. And every 2 years, you get to decide whether or not our contract should be extended. I'm asking for your support because I care about our state as my colleague does. I care about Mesquite. Every community is different, and I do think that we need to have solutions that help benefit this community as we try to address issues across the entire nation. And I have voted against my party and the president when it has been in the best interest of the people here in Nevada. Whether that's been on the budget, whether it's been against the administration's position on NSA, or as I was talking with the gentleman in the back, when the president proposed capping cost of living increases for people on Social Security, I said to the president, that's wrong. I won't support it, and I won't support your budget. I actually voted for Chairman Ryan's budget that year because it did not include a cost of living cap on Social Security. So I'm asking for your support. I appreciate you being here tonight, and thank you very much for allowing me to serve you these first 2 years, and I hope that I can continue to do that for many more years to come.
You know, first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Clemenson for his hospitality and his staff, and what a wonderful job they've done. I really appreciate that. Appreciate the congressman to coming here and having this opportunity. You know, I've been asked, why am I running? And you know, as an individual, there's only one real reason that I run, and it's kind of personal, self-serving even. You know, I believe that my children don't have the same opportunity that I had as a child growing up. You know,